I mean, 16,000 incidents of violent crime on public transportation in 1 year. That's epic proportions. When there's that level of crime, then that tells me there's a lot of criminality. And when there's a lot of criminality, it's easy for it to spill into other areas.
Good point.
I mean, it's just like an avalanche, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You can ignore it when it's way up there and it's tiny and you see a little snow falling, but by the time it's midway down and it's big enough, there's no escaping it. It's going to...
I still see all the expats just playing the fiddle like nothing's happening, you know, like it's okay. Let's go to Mexico. I feel safe. Guess what we're going to do today? We're going to take a walk. Let's get a close-up look of what's down there today. All right, let's do it. You were talking this morning to me about some things that were happening in Mexico on the public transportation.
Oh, well, this is just part of the whole picture we've been talking about now for a number of years, actually, that we've made several videos that, you know, we were the Lewis and Clark, the guys with the arrows in their backs, meaning that when you're the differing opinion, you're the trailblazer, and not trying to be the trailblazer. I just like to get to the bottom of things and tell the correct facts on it. I don't want to make videos where I'm just embellishing and, you know, acting like a vested interest, because I'm not. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a number of years. It's not a very popular opinion because, as you were saying, actually, that some of the people do listen, but a lot of the people have a really strong barrier to penetrate on their own that they have erected for themselves. You know, how they do it, whether they believe or want to believe. That's the strongest barrier, is when someone wants to believe a particular storyline, and then therefore as humans we just block out anything that is not consistent with the storyline that we want to believe, and the storyline being that Mexico is safe. Because you said articles come out saying, is Mexico safe? Why would anybody need to ask when clearly the clear facts are that the level of unsafety is escalating higher and higher and higher? It's not a question of who hasn't been a victim of crime yet making videos and saying, I feel safe. You know, as we've said before, safety has nothing to do with how you feel, or it's not a feeling. It's a fact, and it's a collection of facts of what kind of crimes are happening and to who and under what conditions. Analyzing that and saying, okay, well, what's the level, and you know, and then saying over a period of time, it looks like that level's increasing. Clearly, coming out and asking, is Mexico safe, is done solely for the purpose of validating the feeling for people that have a desire to believe. You notice how it's all about mindset, meaning mindset is not related to the actual level of crime. It has to do with how people insulate themselves in their mind, which doesn't insulate them from the crime. You see? So mindset is not a bubble that you can live in safety. Mindset is just a way for people to ignore and deny, and then to be able to say that, you know, no, there's no issues to be concerned about because nothing happened to me.
Oh, you're just going to go around?
At what level do we claim comfort? Clearly, 1 out of 6 isn't a very good comfort. 1 out of millions could give us some comfort, but how do you analyze at what level comfort has a probability of something happening to you? Well, I would say that one of them is whether you're actually blocking out the facts of the crime rates escalating or not. Basically, a person has to really be analytical and realize that, look, crime is widespread in Mexico, and when they're talking about over 16,000 violent incidents on public transportation alone in a year, over 16,000, over 99...
That's reported.
Well, that are measured and reported, over 99% of them being with violence and bloodshed. So this isn't just, hey, give me your wallet, you know. When you know these kinds of facts, then you know that the level of violence, it is at a level that is unacceptable. If that level of crime was in your country, and I know that people say, oh, Chicago, Detroit. Do you live in Chicago? Do you live in Detroit? Did you know that you could move out of Chicago? You can move out of Detroit? You know, there's other cities in America where the crime rates aren't like those areas, right? So, I mean, we don't want to be told that in order to escape American crime, we must go to Mexico, where 16,000 incidents of violent crime occurred just on the public transportation alone, okay? Not to mention all the other extortions and robberies and home invasions and all that. So
the crime in Mexico makes Ecuador look like a preschool.
At the moment, because things are always in a flux and they're always changing and evolving.
But it does. In Ecuador on the transportation, all there is like some minor, you know, pickpockets and stuff like that for your cell phone or your wallet, you know, whatever else you might have on you, but there's not slaughter.
You know, and throughout our time of making videos and occasionally talking about Mexico, because we're not picking on Mexico,
you can't help picking on Mexico if it sounds like that, because they're so crime ridden. We can't help it.
Well, if you're gonna tell the facts, then it's gonna be the facts, and it isn't going to be just the postcard and you just remove the facts. The thing that speaks to me is not necessarily these crimes or those crimes. Those are things that I take note of, right? And then realize, perhaps make a plan on how to avoid those situations, right? So we take control of what we can control. What concerns me is when the level of crime reaches epic proportions. I mean, 16,000 incidents of violent crime on public transportation in 1 year. That's epic proportions. This is nationwide, and when there's that level of crime, then that tells me there's a lot of criminality, and when there's a lot of criminality, it's easy for it to spill into other areas.
Good point.
I mean, it's just like an avalanche, you know. You can ignore it when it's way up there and it's tiny and you see a little snow falling, but by the time it's midway down and it's big enough, there's no escaping it. It's going to
I still see all the expats just playing the fiddle like nothing's happening, you know, like it's okay. Let's go to Mexico. I feel safe.
I don't imagine that people that are wanting to believe in fairy tales are going to watch this video and all of a sudden, you know, be awakened. Although I would always hope that they would. For those that don't have barriers erected and are accepting, you know, information and facts, because we make our videos based on facts. It's a principle in law saying that if the facts are material, meaning that they're important enough that had you known them, you would not have gone ahead with the transaction, that's a material fact. Now, small facts that wouldn't necessarily have been a deal breaker or changed whether you would have entered into the transaction or not are meaningless. So I understand not needing to include all the minutia, all the little tiny facts that really wouldn't change the transaction. But something super material like, hey, come on down, this is heaven. Hey, it's paradise and everything's perfect. And then, you know, people are getting their drinks spiked, they're getting raped, they're getting, murdered, they're getting, and we have been following this phenomena around the world.
I know what you're saying, and I will say an example. Boquete, Panama was going through a really, really bad time between 2015 and 17 when they were pumping Boquete, and there was a bunch of Americans and Canadians there. They had to leave. A lot of them left. Now it's died down, and so people might see our literature and go, oh, this isn't what I've been told. I've been told it's really safe.
Exactly. The point being that they'll take take a small village like Vilcabamba, even smaller than Boquete. So they take these small areas and turn them into the vicious cycles. They are peaceful villages and small towns, but by the time the Rams are done with them, they become criminals against rich foreigner kind of conflict that evolves over a number of years, of course. I'm saying that we live in the information age, and it's no longer necessary to become a victim of this kind of manipulation. You can know in advance what this can, because we've been through it and we've seen it and we've recorded it and tagged it and whatever you want to call it. We've watched it for almost a decade now, okay? We can clearly quantify how these things happen and when they happen, and therefore we can know that in advance, and we can make the kind of decisions that say, well, wait a minute, this thing's in progress over here, and it's in progress over here, and it's only a matter of time before the next step.
And the bottom line is?
So the bottom line is that it's our opinion that normal growth is slow growth, and that in the age of the internet with billions of eyeballs, it creates an unnatural speed of increase. And when that speed picks up, in other words, an avalanche of wealthy, compared to the locals, folks show up in a short amount of time, over say five years or so, there are consequences. And especially when these people have certain characteristics, which is to say, the baby boomer of North America, which is normally not well traveled, not travel savvy, and has certain beliefs about money that are in conflict with Latin American cultural, standards. The Mexican crime, a lot of it is based on the prevailing drug culture that was there, which is similar to what was happening in Colombia, a few decades ago. You can see the same thing pretty much happening, except for then we didn't have internet and there wasn't all these wealthy foreigners arriving, very quickly in large numbers in a small space. So cause and effect that some of this crime is going to spill over into the communities, and it's kind of putting blinders over your eyes to believe that it isn't eventually going to happen when the level of crime is reaching epic proportions, and it is exponentially increasing. So
okay, so is Mexico safe?
Well, the thing about foreign travel is that at least there's a lot of different places that people can go. If you like the video, you know what to do, and please leave a comment. Whatever you want to say, it's okay with us. Just be kind and rewind. Thanks.
Bye.